Ladies and gentlemen,
Businesses have life cycles just like humans, and what they need at each stage will be different.
Yeah, it's a setup to make you get up and get into it. Allow me to influence your
The
financial
six
affluence.
figure
It's a
setup.
setup to make you get up and get into it. Allow me to influence your financial affluence.
The six-figure setup.
But nothing in this world that I like more than checks. Money. All I really wanna see is the money.
Go get the money. Go get the money.
My check.
The six-figure setup.
What's going on, guys? It's your girl, Tiffany Gillespie, and I am live with another episode of the Six Figure Setup Podcast. Listen, it is a brand new year. Y'all, we made it to 2023. Like, this is exciting. I am so excited, so honored, so blessed, and I hope that your year is off to a great start. We have a lot of amazing things planned for the Six Figure Setup podcast this year. And we are kicking off the year with an interview with an amazing woman, someone who I actually met in the spirit. And y'all know how I feel about my sisters when I met, the ones that I've met in a setting where we had the opportunity to pray for one another, to cover one another, and to really meet each other in an intimate space. So I think it is perfect that the first interview of the year is with one of my sisters in Christ, and we have had opportunity to just stay connected throughout the years and all of that. So I'm going to go ahead and bring her on. Welcome, Nicole.
Hey, Tiffany, how are you?
I am so good, doing so well. Really excited to have you and excited to be in a brand new year full of possibility and promise.
Amen.
Let
me tell you, 2023 is about to be fire.
It is. It is. So, y'all, I'm going to give y'all a quick little background about Nicole. If you know anything about her, then you probably heard her debt-free story. Her and her husband, they were able to pay off over $80,000 of debt. And we're going to get into that because that's a really important part of her entrepreneurial journey, but it's also a part of her six-figure setup, right? So we're gonna come back to that, but here's what you need to know about Nicole. Nicole is a certified meeting planner and the project manager. I have so many M's and P's in my vocabulary. If you've been listening to the Six Figure Setup podcast, you all know I'm always talking about all of the acronyms that exist in minority business development. There's an acronym for everything. So let me run that back again. She is not a meeting planner, okay? She is a certified project manager and the founder of Mediocre to Masterful. This is a platform that teaches women how to boss up in entrepreneurship, wealth, and wellness. And Nicole has truly mastered that. So I'm excited to have her tell you all her story of how she went from a normal life to really mastering this thing called life. She also owns the PM Suite, which is an operations project management consulting company that supports entrepreneurs, corporations, and project managers. She worked in corporate America in project management leadership, so she is more than qualified to talk about this subject. And she worked in the corporate sector for about a decade until she retired from corporate America at age 33. Listen, retired at age 33, and she was only able to do this after she paid off over $80,000 in student loans and became 100% debt-free. And she has some more debt-free parts to her story. Her and her husband purchased a property last year. Like, we're gonna get into all of that. Like, this, her life, like, she's just mastered it. And I'm so excited to just dig into her story. So she became debt-free, built her business, increased her savings, and she has a method using the FIRE method, which is financial independence, retire early. She's been featured in Women of Project Management's Masterclass, Project Management Institute, and she also hosts a TV show, okay? She's a star, all right? She hosts a TV show through the Hope TV network, and that is just to name a few. of the amazing accomplishments that she has seen. So let's give Miss Nicole Jones her kudos and her love. Nicole, am I missing anything?
Girl, I think that's good enough.
Yes, yes. That's what people with amazing resumes say. Don't read anymore. That's enough. You covered enough. Well, I've mentioned already, we're gonna just get into it because
Yes.
normally I would kind of save this for the end, but I want to start at the highlight, like at the height of the story. And I really want to get into your debt-free story. That is, I mean, we thank God for the debt cancellation that Biden gave everybody, but she canceled her own debt. All right, she paid off her own debt. What made you um how did you know it was possible? Like, what made
Huh.
you believe that you could pay off? I mean, I don't even have that much in student debt to pay off. So to hear that number, for those of us who may not have that much debt, and for those who may have more or the same amount, it kind of hits differently depending on where you are. But how did you know it was even possible? Because that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. It's a
Yeah.
lot. So how did I know? I didn't. I did not know I would be able to do this. It was called a little thing called faith. And it's like, you know what, God, walk me through this because I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel right now. I know it's possible because I've seen, a lot of success stories online through YouTube, what have you. But it's like, okay, can that also be my story? Like, I want to be able to do that as well and kind of follow like the certain path using the fire method, being able to eliminate a lot of the debt, and really be able to allow myself to almost be a conduit for other women, other people that look like me. Um, Basically say, you know what, if she can do this and she looks like, one of my friends from up the street, the girl next door or what have you, I could do this too. So I think that also played a part in determining the fact that I think I can do this. I know I can do this. Let me follow the steps. As hard and as tumultuous as it is, because it required a lot of saving, a lot of cutting back, a lot of our favorite word, budgeting, and being able just to be disciplined. I think that was a huge thing, is just being disciplined in this process to say, okay, I know I don't feel the effects or see the change right off the bat now, as I'm getting started in this debt-free journey. But I know if I make these incremental changes literally daily, this is going to lead me to a greater reward. And then here we are, $80,000 the debt-free later. And this was during the pandemic.
Yeah.
That last check, that last payment was during the pandemic. So me and my husband had our own little pandemic party together in the house, to celebrate the moment. But it was just something, it was truly a faith walk. And I will say that not only was it just me being able to carry forward that level of discipline and knowing like, this is the plan that I want to achieve. This is the goal that I'm setting out for. And now I know I can attain this because I've created a financial plan, but also having that support of my husband throughout this process as well, because between the both of us, he's more financially savvy. So having his support during this process was really helpful. And it's just something, with any of us, I think whoever you are, whatever your background is, you want to be able to do this not alone. You want to be able to do this with someone else that can support you, whether that's one person or 20 people. You guys kind of rally behind each other to get this done. So in actuality, between the both of us, we eliminated $120,000 worth of debt because he eliminated his debt as well, a year or so before I did.
Listen, that's good. I mean, it's some people, 100 that is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so 120K. Let me I'm gonna make a note of that. So when I go back and do these show notes, I wanted some people to get it, correct. I love what you said about the support, that your husband gave you. And this wasn't something that, we had written down in our notes to kind of talk about, but can you tell us just how important it has been for you to have your husband's support, not just in the debt-free journey, but in business as well, because you also took a huge leap of faith to become an entrepreneur, which we'll dig into in a second. But I want to talk a little bit about like marriage and just how important it is to marry well and to marry someone
Mm,
to support you.
that's a great question, girl. Marrying well is extremely important. So I'm extremely grateful for the fellowship, the partnership, the friendship, the lovership, whatever you want to call it, that my husband and I had throughout this process, because it's required. If you individually want to level up, of course there's a certain level of discipline we each individually have, but then to have that support person, that person that will rally you on, cheer you on at any given moment, and really keep it real with you. Even they might not be cheering you on all the time. They
So
might just
good.
be keeping it real with you and saying, hey, get back to center because
Mm,
you a little off right now.
mm,
But to have that level of support is extremely critical. And I get quite a few questions, both he and I, from friends or, people that know us, saying like, how do you guys do it? And we always, always, always say the same thing. Faith, our foundation in God, and communication.
mm. So good.
Literally,
Mm.
literally, that is just the
Whew.
the entire like brunt of why we're able to continue to thrive the way that we are.
Mm.
Of course, there's trials, tribulations with any process, relationship, friendship, or what have you. But in a marriage specifically, to have those two as solid foundations, to help build you guys up, whatever you believe in. If you don't believe in God, whatever it is that you believe in together, and that communication piece plays a large part in the success, the growth,
Yeah.
the opportunity, the communication. And it's not just communication in terms of just like how you and I are talking right now, but being able to listen and understand what my partner is asking of me. And then the other part of that, of course, comes the support and being able to support that person wholeheartedly, whether that means you're supporting them in their visions and dreams and providing them guidance and acceptance, or you're supporting them in their dreams, but also making sure that they don't steer the wrong way if you feel like this might not be the best direction. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. And I love that honesty and transparency, vulnerability. It's necessary, like you said, for any relationship, whether it be platonic, professional, but definitely, in marriage to ensure that you are on the same page. So you got a supportive husband. He's amazing. You are like paying off debt, rocking and rolling, doing some amazing things. And I want to continue in that vein for a moment because you all also were able to purchase a property in 2022. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like what happened with that?
Yeah. So actually, we sold our first property.
Sold. Okay.
We bought our first property the same year that we got married, a
Okay.
couple years back. And during the time, as we know, the market has been marketing in terms of the housing market.
Yeah.
And we saw an opportunity, being the first in your family unit where you're like, okay, the first to get a six-figure job, a corporate career job, the first to launch out to be full-time entrepreneurs, the first to eliminate debt for yourselves before the age 35. We were also, one of the first to be able to purchase our first homes at such a young age within the family, or, one of side of our families. But it's just one of those things where it's like the opportunity to capitalize off how the housing market was performing during the time that we sold our first property was just like, we couldn't pass this up. We just couldn't pass this up.
Yeah.
And some people who may have followed me in my journey may have saw some past interviews where we talked about a lot about investments, being
Mhm.
able to invest, whether that's the stock market, whether that's in real estate. Our next step was investments in real estate after we've, eliminated our debt. And so this was our first way of pocketing some of
Yeah.
that money to continue to invest in other opportunities in real estate as well. So it
Yeah.
was a bittersweet moment because it was our first home.
Yeah.
But we also know we had an ultimate goal in mind. This is not just because the housing market was doing so well. We already had a plan in mind on how we would be able to move in terms of investing in real estate.
Yeah.
And it just so happened the way that the market was performing, it was just perfect timing and allows us to continue to branch out and continue to get more properties.
Yes, I love that. I love that. So there's a lot that I have pulled out from what you have shared just in this first segment. So I've heard sacrifice, I've heard discipline, I've heard faith, I've heard support. Can you speak any further? Let's talk a little bit about sacrifice because
Yeah.
the journey of paying off that amount of debt and really doing better with your finances, period. Like financial management is a sacrifice, whatever that
Mhm.
looks like for each individual person. So what sacrifices have you had to make from going from being in corporate to being a full-time entrepreneur? We need to talk about that because we're at the beginning, of a new year. And I think a lot of people, like, people make their New Year's resolutions and all of their plans for the new year. And one of the things that a lot of people plan for or hope for is that either they came into this year already, having made that leap into full-time entrepreneurship, or they're hoping that they can do what is necessary from now to the end of the year, so that next year they'll be able to make that leap. So, what kind of sacrifices would you would you say that you had to make, or even would you advise people to make as they prepare for full-time entrepreneurship?
That is a great question. So it's twofold. Your question was around how was I able to make that sacrifice going into entrepreneurship full time? But I want to start with how did I make that sacrifice personally before the entrepreneurship actually happened? So I kind of alluded to it earlier, where I basically mentioned, we were making a sacrifice earlier on because we knew we had an ultimate goal to eliminate debt 100% for the both of us. And for me personally, it was a little bit more of a struggle. I'm going to say that right now. Because again, I was not, I'm not going to say I'm not because I am now, but I was not at that moment in the right mindset to understand the power of financial literacy, the power of financial planning. I understood the impacts that it could have on my life personally. But I just was not in that mode because, like a lot of us, we did not grow up at the table having these conversations about money. So we didn't know what that looked like, felt like, smelled like, tastes like, talked like. So to be able to literally having to unlearn, which I, funny enough, after all of this is said and done throughout this financial journey, on the day that I made my last payment, I also announced that I wrote a book about my financial journey called Unlearn, Ditch Failed Money Habits and Discover Financial Freedom, where I basically walk through like this mindset shift that I had to make in order for me to be able to get into the moment of understanding that I don't have this all together. I don't know, what's up from down, what's left from right when it comes to financial money management, because I just have not had the tools and the resources growing up to be able to do that. So being able to sacrifice my thought patterns throughout this process, pull apart all the things that I had been learning or had learned growing up, this whole rob Peter to pay Paul mentality. I'll pay this one next week or next month. Can I borrow this much money from you, from so-and-so? Don't be paying nobody back. And it's just like, it was like a whole concoction of things or activities or actions that I thought were normal in our community that people typically do. And this is how you get by in life when it comes to finances. Not realizing a lot of those are bad, poor money habits. Like that's a poverty mindset. And I needed to literally unlearn that, take a step back, pull apart all those thoughts, those activities, that, again, that thought process to say, I'm not doing something right.
Yeah.
I need to understand how can I pivot in a way where I have a lot more financial literacy. I understand this better. I feel a lot more comfortable talking about money, because even during that time, having a conversation about money, I would be hot. I'd be sweating. I felt uncomfortable. I felt illiterate. I felt incompetent. And it just was not something that I automatically took to, just because it always felt like a burden in a sense. Money was always, a part of life where it's like I just lack in that area.
Mhm.
I'm lacking in order to be able to perform well in this area as well.
Yeah.
So it really was taking that step back, pulling apart all those things that I just mentioned, and building myself up again to have better practices, sacrificing shopping online every weekend to go to somebody lounge or happy hour,
Yep.
sacrificing going out to eat every other day with coworkers and happy hours with
Mm.
coworkers, and understanding that if I'm saying that I want to achieve this financial goal, I'm going to have to walk back a lot of these things that are actually impacting my performance and not allowing me to get to the goal that I want to achieve. So when you think about sacrifice, I almost want to say it could be synonymous with just making changes in your life. So I don't know if it was necessarily a sacrifice or a necessary sacrifice in order to get to the end result, which was debt freedom.
Yeah, yeah. That is so good. I love one of the things that I have cut out of my just like spending really is going out to eat. Now, let me tell y'all, man, at the beginning of like from the end of 2021 to the maybe like middle of 2022, middle to like late part of 2022, I was out here living my best life. I mean, I was going out to eat every weekend, and I'm not talking about like no Applebee's Ruby Tuesdays. I'm talking about going to Capitol Grill, going down to the Sullivan's, going to the steakhouse. I don't even eat steak. Like I'm trying to go wherever they got lobster, right? Really
Yeah.
nice lobster. And I told myself there were a lot of things, that played into my decision to cut back on going out to eat. But much like what you said, it was a lifestyle change. Like it wasn't something that I just wanted to do temporarily. I wanted to make a change in the way that I viewed my money and really to recalibrate. It wasn't that I couldn't afford it, right? It wasn't that it was that I was like living beyond my means, but what I much like you said, I have goals that I want to achieve, and I can't be going down to the steakhouse, every weekend or sometimes twice, in a week,
Yeah.
or just going out to eat unnecessarily. Also, it was very unhealthy for me. Like eating at restaurants is typically not healthy; it's much healthier to eat at home. And I know that wellness, in addition to wealth and entrepreneurship, that wellness is another really important pillar
Yeah.
of the work that you do and of your lifestyle. So I love that you shared about those sacrifices. Guys, we are getting ready to take a commercial break. I am really enjoying myself with Nicole today. And when we come back from the commercial break, we are going to talk about the new year. We're going to talk about what a new year means for business owners, why business operations and really mastering that is important for you all to get clients. You all know all month long, I'm just talking about how to make more money, right? How can you get more clients in your business and how can you keep clients in your business? So when we come back, Nicole will share her insights on that. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a moment.
Gone are the days of expensive weekend conferences masquerading as business coaching opportunities. T3 Diversity Solutions is a management consulting firm that helps women of color business owners start, grow, and scale their companies through personalized consulting, access, and support. Their focus on strategic planning and growth is what your business needs to attain and sustain six-figure success. Visit T3DiversitySolutions.com to schedule your 360 business analysis.
All right, welcome back, guys, from commercial break. I am live with Mrs. Let me get that Mrs. right. Mrs. Nicole Jones, and she is the founder of Mediocre to Masterful, and has a couple of other businesses and communities under her business hat. But we just spent the first 5 minutes talking about her debt-free story. If you missed it, you're gonna have to press rewind and go back and listen again. So, Nicole, I want to jump into entrepreneurship and really talking about how you use your plan for financial freedom. So, you and your husband intentionally together paid off $120,000 worth of debt over the span of a few years. You all did that, and that actually set you up for entrepreneurship, but there's also a really important part about how much you all were able to save. So can you talk about some of the financial things? Again, we're at the beginning of a new year. There are some people who are listening to this who either just made that leap into full-time entrepreneurship, or they're hoping that they can take steps this year so that by this time next year, they'll be in full-time entrepreneurship. So what are some of the tangible financial things that you did to prepare yourself for full-time entrepreneurship?
No, this is good. And this is actually part of like that twofold response to the other question before we went to break. Basically laying out from an entrepreneurial and business aspect. Once we eliminated debt, the next plan of action was to, okay, let's continue to provide more money into our investments and our savings. And because we knew that one of us, whether it's, whoever is going to be, was going to actually going to leave corporate America to actually jump into full-time entrepreneurship, we leveraged that opportunity to continue to save more and really honestly save up to a little close to or a little over a year of income while we were still working our 9 to 5 before actually taking that actual leap. And so that's actually what we did to be able to do that. And so when you talk about what we were talking about earlier in terms of like the sacrifice into business, it honestly didn't feel like it because we prepared, we planned, we were prepared to have this leap happen. We knew it was coming. We didn't know when. We knew within the next year or so, give or take. So we prepared ourselves to be able to, provide for ourselves financially, not to have to take any loans if we didn't need to, and just use ourselves as that capital gain for the business itself.
Yeah. So, I love that. Use ourselves as the capital gain for the business. There are so many different ways to fund a business. And in the age that we live in this post-COVID era, one of the things that commonly comes up, and it can be a little bit frustrating. I talked about this in previous episodes, so anyone who listens to the podcast already knows how I feel about this. But I am of the firm belief that if you need money to start a business or to do something in your business, you generate the money. My company literally operated debt free, I want to say for like 8 years, like for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
We took on no debt in the business. And even the debt that we did take on, like the repayment for that debt was like $200 a month. Like it was such a
Wow.
like such a low obligation. And that's something, and I still take pride in that. The only reason we took on that debt was to scale. So, and that's a whole other conversation for another time in terms of using capital and funding strategically, but we took advantage of opportunities that presented themselves. We developed a plan to use that money to grow. I am of the firm belief, and I say this on the podcast, I teach it to my clients, that your business should be able to pay for itself, right? When you are running a business day to day, month over month, whatever you're doing to generate sales, like your sales should at least cover the expenses of your business. If not, you are operating above your means, which is can lead to the same catastrophe as living beyond your means. So that is what I believe. When you get capital infusions, so like all of that money that came out, as a part of COVID relief packages and PPP and all of those things, I was strongly encouraging my clients to use that money to grow your business. Now, it's one thing if you had like a restaurant or something, right? You maybe needed to use that money to keep the operations of the business going, but that was a very unique situation that prayerfully we will not encounter again in our lifetimes, right? Like prayerfully. We don't want to encounter that. So just in general, like barring the uniqueness of the situation of COVID, whenever you get capital infusions, you should use them to grow your business, because your business should be able to pay its bills, from day to day, month to month, whatever the case may be. And when we talk about that funding piece, so for me, I kind of used my corporate job when I first started my business, but by the time I became self-employed, I was unexpectedly self-employed because I got terminated from my job. So there was I didn't know to like plan or prepare. And at this was 11 or more years ago, right? The conversations that we're having around funding and financial management, even as business owners, we weren't talking about this 11 years ago.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Nor do we see people who look like us having these
Right.
conversations as frequently as they are now. So
Absolutely. So I used a little bit of like my job, my paycheck to like start my business. But when I lost my job, forget taking care of the business. I was trying to figure out how to take care of myself. Like there was not a bunch of savings. I wasn't as financially savvy as I am now, but I literally used my unemployment checks that I was getting to build my business. And I tell that story all the time. So I wanted to just highlight that again, because there's more than one way to do it, right? Your story is you and your husband set out, you had a plan that you wanted to save a year's worth of income, which I think is absolutely amazing. Financial experts would say that you should have anywhere between 3 months to a year saved. What I say is the more the better, right? Once you get to at least 3 months, okay, you can maybe start considering some moves, but if you can stick it out and save a year's worth or a year and a half or sacrifice to do whatever you need to do, I would say to do that, because you don't know what business is going to hold. However, the other thing that I want to say is not to use, what am I trying to say? Like, don't skate yourself. And that's actually like a Greek term. I'm trying to think of a term that's like more common. Like, don't like play yourself, right? And what I mean by that is, if you know that you have a goal to quit your job and you need to save a year's worth of income, do what you need to do. And a lot of people, because they use that as an excuse to say, oh, I can't quit my job because I don't have a year's worth of money saved. And I heard on the podcast that you got to have a year's worth of money saved. That's one story. My story was I had no money saved. Not what I would recommend, but you don't use, if you know that it's important to you to have a certain amount saved before you leave your corporate job, do the work. Do what you need to quickly so that you can get off of your job and walking in full-time entrepreneurship. So I'm gonna get off my soapbox about that.
No, that's good. That's really good. I think what we're talking about are big, major life milestones.
Yeah.
We're talking about debt freedom. That's a huge thing, especially in the Black community. For us to be debt free in our family, like, praise the Lord.
Yeah.
Then we're talking about full-time entrepreneurship or taking that leap. And we're at the top of the year. These are like major goals that for some people you can't achieve within a year. It takes you a year to get to finish some of these goals. It's not close to. So I think that's important to mention, that even though you hear a lot of people's story, you then try to manipulate, or not necessarily manipulate, but actually try to mimic that same story when it might not be the same story for you. So find what's good for you in terms of like that rhythm, that cadence. How can I pay off debt? You're like, Nicole, I'm hearing your story. This sounds like a great plan, a great strategy. I'm going to go pick up that book, unlearn, and understand what you did.
Yeah.
But if it makes sense for how you can actually manage and sacrifice or budget or however to get to that goal of debt freedom and then entrepreneurship, that works for you. Awesome. Yep. Somebody else's story, like what you just mentioned, where he's like pretty much like, I'm taking the leap and I'm going to use my unemployment to help me navigate to get there. If by all means, if you can do that, do that. But again, it takes to what you said, do some research, understand your own financial patterns, habits, where you need help, where you need support, because it can be a challenge for sure, especially if you're not good with money like I wasn't back then. It could be a real challenge. So it really is just kind of molding and understanding, like, where do I fit? How do I fit into these different stories that I've heard? They sound good. How can I pull or map together something or pieces from each of them, or whose story follow closely with how I live my life today? So.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. And pulling those pieces, you can definitely pull, like, take the things that work for you. And that's one of the things I love about doing a podcast, is you can apply the pieces and parts, that work for you. So we're at the beginning of a new year. What are some of the things that you, as a business owner, as a pretty new self-employed entrepreneur, what are some of the things that you're like thinking about in business, planning for? Like, how are you ensuring that this year is going to be a successful year for you?
That is a great question. Let me tell you, I am super excited because this year marks my first full year as a full-time, the second year of my full-time entrepreneurship. 2022 was my first year. I started off in January, kicked off the year as a full-time entrepreneur. So 2023 is kind of like bringing that back around again. I just had my anniversary of 1 year as entrepreneur. So I'm going into year 2. And so I'm just really excited. I am extremely grateful and also very proud of myself, I should say, because, if you actually have a plan, which is important with anything, if you actually have a plan and you begin to see yourself just literally checking off each one of those items that was on your plan, I'm able to execute on each one of these items. I'm meeting my financial goals for the year. I'm not tapping or pulling too much money from that budget that I set aside for my business. I'm able to remain afloat within my business and not feel like I have to be pressed to go back to corporate America. So I'm just really excited to continue to get closer to that 6-figure mark for this year. Last year came close to, not necessarily there, but very close to. So this year is going to be my 6-figure year. Like, I'm claiming that. I'm claiming that. So I'm just extremely excited. And it feels like a dream. It feels surreal. And then I think that's just something that's just the beauty of this entire process. And I'm excited to continue to share my story with other people so they can say, okay, this is legit. Like, I can actually do this. Like, I see myself in that story, and I want to be able to achieve that in ways that are either close to or surpass me, please.
Yeah, so good. I love that. That's what my greatest prayer for all of my clients is that they would get to where I am or beyond where I am faster than I did. Like, I want to, give them the tools, the resources and things that are necessary so that they can get there and get there quickly. So thank you for sharing what you're considering, in business. I think all of those things are absolutely important. And I'm so excited for you to be entering year 2 of full-time entrepreneurship. Listen, this journey is not for the faint of heart, but it's worth it. And I always tell people my testimony is that each day has gotten better than the one before. Like, I didn't see it when I was in year 1, year 2, year 3. And like you said, our stories differ in that finances were a major challenge for me because I didn't have a plan. I didn't have anything saved. And I am of the firm belief, and I've said it numerous times on the podcast and in other spaces, that it's hard to create when you're worried about money. It's hard to be able to like think and come up with new ideas when really every idea has to lead to money. And it took me years before I got to the point where I had the mental space to really create and think in the way that I wanted to. So I am excited for you. You're not, you haven't been a client of mine, but your story is like what I wish for my clients, right? That again, they would get to where I am or beyond that faster. So the fact that what took me, maybe like 5 years to be able to achieve, to really get the company to a financially stable place, that you entered into this, financially stable so that you could think and create and, do all of these things. So that's real special, for me, just knowing you and knowing your story.
Yeah, no, that's major. It's definitely major.
Yeah. So let's talk about, since we're talking about money and how we get to the money, I want to talk about getting clients in your business. So again, you are a brand new full-time entrepreneur, and you specialize in operations within business, and you help, other businesses, corporations, project managers, all of that. So what role, I want to teach a little bit in this moment, right? Because a lot of people don't understand the role that operations plays. So let me actually do this. What is operations? Can we start? Let's start at the very basic level. Let's start at the basic level because, if somebody, like, let's say this is the very first episode of the podcast, they maybe have never heard that term before. And for you and I, we also speak in very technical terms and professional terms because of like our corporate background. And also depending on the space that you working in minority business development, like we use very professional terms. So what is operations? Let's start with that.
Yes, yes, and yes. So operations is basically the flow and the process of your internal operations of your business. So essentially, when you think about your supply chain, when you think about your team, when you think about the projects that you have going on, when you think about your overhead in your business, I am that person that has a brain for all of those functions in your business to help them keep afloat and remain running.
Yeah.
The other piece of that is project management. I think they're separate because there's an operations manager and then there's a project manager. A lot of people can do both, and thankfully for me and my expertise, I've been in project management for 10 years. I have experience with both. Project management is basically project specific work. So if you have a launch, if you're launching a website, if you're launching a product, if you're launching a new course, if you're launching something that's relatively new within your business, that project manager can help you. This is a small project and it's just you and the project manager, or you and your team, if you have a small but mighty team, or a large and prosperous team, help you get to the finish line for that project product launch that you have set forth. So I do a balance of both in terms of helping my clients with their project launches. They say, hey, I want to launch this before Black Friday, or hey, I want to launch this for Black History Month. Bet, let's do it. Here's our roadmap. Here's our 3-month plan, 6-month plan, whatever the timeline is. From an operations standpoint, I'm looking at financially, is the business good? From a team perspective, do you have enough capacity or enough team members to help with the capacity of the projects that need to get done within the company? I'm looking at the tools that you're using, the resources that you have. Do you even have a project management tool or like an internal drive that your company and your people in your team can actually communicate within? Or are you all just texting each other? So operation kind of helps with that flow. So it's a lot more streamlined, a lot more strategic, a lot more organized and structured, and that you're actually achieving the goals that you say you want to achieve. Because in my case, a lot of the entrepreneurs that I work with, they have amazing ideas, grand ideas. They can't execute on all of them by themselves individually at a task level. They just want to get the idea out and have everybody else do it. So I'm the person that takes the idea, puts it into deliverables for you and your team, and then kind of coaches them throughout that entire process to get it done. So.
Yeah, thank you for that breakdown. And I love what you said that I think kind of almost by nature, entrepreneurs can be very like visionary. I think some people are more of a visionary than others. Like I am someone, and it sounds like we're, probably similar in this way, who I can have a vision and execute my own management of the project and the operations of the business, right? So I do all of those things within my business, even when we have a new vision. Now, I have some friends and some clients that, they couldn't figure out step one, and that's okay, because like you said, that's what we get paid for. Clients will come to us, much like, with you, and say, hey, I want to build out a membership program, or, I want to launch a book or a podcast or whatever. And they're able to utilize, our skill set. So thank you for clarifying what operations management is, what project management is. So how does operations management, if you want to touch on project management as well, how does operations management impact a business's ability to get clients? Because that's what we want to get into that.
Yes, get clients and get money, because that's ultimately what the end goal is. So essentially, through the PM Suite, which is my company, what I'm noticing, or what I've heard, and some of the impact or information that I received, a lot of I wouldn't say a lot, but the ones that have reached out, entrepreneurs that have reached out, they, again, like, they have the concept, they have the idea, they have this game plan that they want to execute. But when it comes to the execution, they're like, I just don't know how to get there. I just know this is a grand idea. This is something that I want to be able to do for the people that I serve. I'm just not sure how to get to the finish line. And in a lot of instances, they even walk it back some more and say, well, I'll get back to you when I have a better idea and a better strategy and a better concept. And it's like, well, that's what I'm here for. I help you with that strategy, that idea, that concept. Because if you wait, It'll be the end of 2023, the end of 2024 before you actually get to that concept. So we help you with that delivery, that strategy piece to get it out of your head, because I think for a lot of us, we just are so in our heads all the time that we think if I just get it out myself, then I'll be able to do it. Well, no, that's where the support comes in from somebody who's in operations and project management to give you the whole scheme of the picture versus just a one-track mind in terms of just executing that one thing. Because I'm thinking, like, when you tell me your idea and your concept and the how to get more clients and your sales that you're trying to do, I'm thinking not only what you just told me, but also the other elements of your business and how it also encompasses or impacts that journey or that roadmap. Because you might not be thinking about that. So essentially helping with that process from an end-to-end standpoint to say, okay, I know you said you want to release this product, but remember, during this time of the year, maybe it's a seasonal thing. During this time of the year, you typically do this type of sale. Have you considered that in this idea and concept that you just shared with me? Have you considered that, you know, you have interns in your business? Well, maybe they're not available in the fall because they're going back to college. Like just different elements that you might not be thinking about and have blinders to from an operations standpoint, that I come and help and assist with to get you closer to that client sale, more clients, and just overall organization and structure in the business. So it's very important, and I'm passionate about it because I left corporate America as a project manager to only do it for myself as a project. These are the things I think, especially at the end of the year, top of the year, a lot of people are thinking about. And it's like, man, I feel like I'm behind the 8 ball. I feel like I had this idea, the top of 2022, the top of 2020, and I'm still having the same concept and idea, and I still haven't actually got it out. So here I am, year 3 of this idea and concept that I want to achieve, and I still haven't achieved it. It's because you have to get it out, and you may not even know that an operations or project manager can assist you with some of these things, or a business coach could assist you with some of these things to get your mind in the framework of being able to execute in a way that makes sense for you and your company. So
yeah. And I love what you shared. Like, if you don't release it, people can't buy what you don't sell, right? So when we're talking about, client acquisition and retention, which is, fancy words for getting clients and being able to keep those clients, when we're talking about that, all of these plans and ideas, they don't matter if they're just in your head. They don't matter if they're just on paper and there have been no tangible steps taken to actually execute the plan. So if you're listening to this and you're like, man, I want to, start my business or grow my business, or I want to get more clients, or I'm trying to figure out why, 50% of my clients didn't come with me into the new year, then you probably need a goal. You probably need someone who can evaluate the operations of your company, who can look at the projects that you have. Because another thing with the project management piece is that like this half execution. And we live in a world that is really driven and motivated by social media. And one of the things that I see a lot is that people will say things like, it doesn't have to be perfect, just put it out there. Or, it doesn't, have to be all the things that it's going to be, just put it out there. And while I do understand the sentiment behind that a little bit, I think for me, I don't want people to allow perfection to keep them stuck. Because the reality is that as an entrepreneur, what we are doing is literally just constantly throwing things out there to see what sticks. Like, if you never put it out there, you don't know for sure that your audience is going to gravitate toward it. So yes, we don't want you to allow perfectionism to keep you from doing what you need to do in business, but you still need to launch with excellence. There still needs to be a level of excellence on whatever it is that you launch, and you don't want to do it halfway, because that is what will result in you losing clients. You won't be able to retain your clients if everything you do is halfway, or if everything you do is short term. Some projects are long term, some projects are short term, some projects are like 5-year projects, and you need to make sure that you're staying on track with them. So if you have like really big vision, or really or a smaller vision, not that it's a bad thing, but whether it's a big plan or a smaller plan, get you a Nicole who can make sure that you actually fully execute
Yeah.
what you are supposed to execute in 2023, because we don't want to be having the same conversation with you
We
guys
don't want
next
that.
year.
Yes, yes. I think what you just said helped spark another thought.
Mhm.
A lot of the entrepreneurs that are out here either have been in corporate America prior to, and
Mhm.
then kind of made the leap and made the transition. So they have some sort of idea of organizational structure, strategy, so on and so forth. The other flip side of that are people who are just have never been in a corporate environment ever.
Mhm.
They might have come more so like the retail route or just started off as entrepreneurs, which is great. But they lack the understanding of the organizational structure and organization and that process. So when it comes to that, know your strengths and know your weaknesses as well. Because again, going back to what we said, what you were alluding to earlier, some of you might just be the visionary. You know the entire scope. You can see the end result in mind, but you're not necessarily the person who's going to execute. And I think where the perfectionism comes into play is that they want to execute everything on their own end to end, and it doesn't come out or perform the way that they're looking for. So then you lose sight of the people that you could have invested in that who have gotten you there faster.
Mhm.
Might have caused a lot of upfront costs because you have to invest in that person, but they're also smarter than you. They can get you there faster, and you would probably end up spending less in the end result of everything.
Yeah.
And again, going back to that client retention and acquisition piece, you probably have a quicker turnaround and a greater retention with somebody who's in place to help and support you in those ways. Because if you, there are things, even for myself, there are things I don't know. There are
Mhm.
unknowns that I just don't know. And I'm going to rely on somebody else and invest in them to support me in that process. The same for the entrepreneurs that we're speaking to, in this process of continuous goals that have sat on the back burner, be able to be open and accepting of other people to invest in your vision. Because if they can understand and they have the skills, the expertise, they will get you there faster.
Absolutely. So be willing to invest. At this point, we're going to take a break. You all can ponder on some things that you need to invest in over the commercial break. So we'll take this quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be at my favorite part of the podcast, which is the six-figure secret. And Nicole and I are going to talk a little bit about something really unique where the six-figure secret is concerned. So make sure you all stick around. We'll be right back.
The holiday season is upon us, and So Our Fitness wants to help you enjoy your celebrations while maintaining your health and nutrition goals. So Our Fitness is an international fitness company that helps women and men achieve their fitness goals through healthy living and exercise. If you are ready to take your fitness life to the next level, check them out on Instagram today at MJ Fitness Global.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Six Figure Setup Podcast. I'm your host, Tiffany Gillespie, and I am live with Mrs. Nicole Jones, owner of the PM Suite and Mediocre to Masterful. She's also an author, has an amazing debt-free story. She's a wonderful wife, and so many other things. So we are down to my favorite part of the show, which is the six-figure secret. So if you've been listening to the entire episode, you all heard Nicole mention that in 2022, the company came close to the six-figure revenue mark, but didn't quite hit it. So this is unique because you guys know that basically every guest has either already hit that six-figure revenue, profit, salary. I've had some seven-figure people up on this podcast, okay? But I think it's important to me that Nicole share her story and what the plan is to achieve six figures in this next year of business ownership. It was also important to me, like the reason why I bring on guests who have already achieved certain things within their business is because I want you all to learn from people who have achieved them. But it's also very important that this space be an honest space. And it took me years. I mean, years to get to six figures. I told y'all my company didn't even feel financially stable for like 5 years. So the fact that you, Nicole, are like, my second full year of entrepreneurship, like that's going to be the year. That is absolutely amazing. And again, it's important. I've brought on people. Some of my guests still have corporate jobs. Everybody's not a full-time entrepreneur. Some people started their business with funding that they got from somewhere. Some people had nothing. Some people had savings, right? So I like to share a variety of perspectives on how to achieve these goals. And I'm giving you all of this context because I want you all to understand why it's so important that I have Nicole share her story of coming close to, right? Because I've been there as well, where I'm like, man, Dad, we felt just short, right? And what that feels like, but also how it motivates you. And you're like next year is the year. So can you talk a little bit about how you keep yourself in a positive space mentally, like the mindset that is necessary to achieve or to even go after, a six-figure revenue within your business?
Yeah, no, thank you for that setup. At this point is really where you kind of tie everything back together. So we start off in our conversation earlier talking about that debt-free journey, talked about that leap into entrepreneurship right after that debt-free journey, and then pretty much sharing like some of the tactics and practices that I do within my company for other entrepreneurs. Where this all comes together and ties into a nice pretty bow where I'll get my six figures is that journey that we just talked about. The debt-free journey took over a course of 7 years. I'm hoping the people who are listening to this and read the book are able to do that in less time. That journey to actually get debt free and get to the point where I've saved enough money for a year's income was probably like 1 or 2 years or so within that process. The process, that third step where we're talking earlier about me being an actual entrepreneur for the first full year, that took a year. And though, if you add that up, those are, of course, over a number of years. This is not an overnight success. We're not going to claim that. I would love that. I mean, God didn't give me that story, but I would love that. But essentially, that is the course over of a few years, essentially. And again, I'm hoping those that are listening kind of take some of these steps, get some of this information, are able to do that in less time. The point is being able to get to six figures is also a mindset piece. I said earlier that debt-free journey for me was a very much so a mindset shift. And I had to unlearn a lot of things and relearn or learn new things about that process. Now that I'm in this journey in my life where I'm actually just a full-time entrepreneur, I'm learning new things. And that cushion that I allowed myself for that year time frame where we saved money for the business before I actually took the leap of faith and went into full-blown entrepreneurship, that cushion gives me the ability to have that creative right. It gives me the ability to not be stressed. It gives me the ability to be more strategic and focused on what the actual end goal in mind for my business is. And one of those things that I did before I even left corporate, listen, the way me and my husband function is different. Like we create plans for each other. End of year, we create financial plans and we do like Shark Tank style. I did that for my business as well. Outside of the personal stuff, I did one for my business to say, okay, before I take this leap, this is what I'm going to do for my business for the next 5 years. This first year, this is the track record and this is the numbers that I think I'm going to run. I exceeded the numbers that I thought I was going to do for 2022. That I had a track record for all the way for the next 5 years after that. Now that I know what I know through that first year of entrepreneurship, I'm like, oh, the price just went up. Like it's different now.
So real.
The price just went up. So I know for a fact, because again, that mindset shift, that preparation and that planning that I did over the course of those many years to get me to the point where I am today is going to get me to that six-figure number for this particular year. Like I just know that. Like you can't tell me different. Like there's nothing you could tell me. And a part of that is just not the knowing. It's just not the mindset. It's just not the faith, but also using some of the practices that we talked about earlier in terms of investing in other people that will help me get there faster. Being able to take the time to understand my business and my own operations. I'm helping other people with their operations.
Girl.
I also need to be on top of my own operations as well. So those pieces of the puzzle will catapult me, continue to carry me forward in ways that I know I will exceed and continue to succeed in those numbers for the next I don't know how many years God gonna keep me here, but however long that's gonna be, it's gonna be.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So the two things that I pulled out, or three things, are in terms of how you plan to attain or reach your six figures in revenue is first and foremost mindset. So make sure y'all write that down. If you're listening, you know you should have your notebook. So mindset is number one. Looking at the operations of your business, and then investing in the help that you need wherever you lack, or wherever you maybe it's not even necessarily. I think we teach people to invest in the areas where they lack, but I am of the belief, and maybe because of just where I am in business, you can also invest in helping the things you just don't want to do, right?
Period.
Like there are things in business that after being a business owner for over a decade, I don't want to do that no more. Like it just is what it is. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
hire someone, to do that thing for me. And I am in a space, and again, just like what Nicole said, her journey to even be thinking about attaining six figures in business took like 7, 8, 9 years. Like it wasn't something that just happened overnight. The view that I have on investing in health and investing in things that allow ease and convenience in my life, it took 11 years for me to get to that point. And this is important to highlight because I think that a lot of times people who just like come out of the gate, with starting a business, think you're supposed to be able to have ease and convenience in your first year. No, you got to put some skin in the game. You
You
got to,
do.
invest in that thing. You have to show that you are dedicated, that you are committed, that you're invested, that you are all about and all for the business. Before anybody else puts any
Mhm.
blood, sweat, and tears into it, you have to prove that you're willing to put in the blood, sweat, and tears. So when you hear our stories, the hope is that it encourages you and lets you know that you can get to this point. But please do not skip over the part that it took us a decade to achieve these things that we're talking about. And again, we hope that it happens sooner for you, but I don't know anybody who's been able to do a decade worth of work in 1 year, right? So I'm hoping that what took us 10 years takes you 5, right? Like I want it to be a realistic number. What took us 5 years takes you 2. Okay. So make sure that you all are being realistic as you're planning for this year, as you're setting your client acquisition goals, as you're developing your strategy for client retention, that you're being realistic with your goals as well, so that you don't end up disappointed at the end of the year because you set unrealistic goals. So make sure
Yeah.
you all are doing that as well.
Yeah, it's like
So
chiseling away at the mold, like being
yeah,
able to take that time, understand it's not an overnight success,
yeah,
and understand that. So I think a lot of people, especially at the top of the year, people are like, "Well, when is going to be my turn?" I'm
yeah.
seeing all these other people winning and achieving in ways that I wish that I could.
Mm,
It's not going to happen in a day, a week, a month.
yeah,
It's going to take you that year, that 2 years, that 3 years of preparation and planning. As long as you're chiseling away at that mold over the course of those years,
yeah,
you're actively working towards that end result goal. So if you're just waking up every day and mad at everybody and their mama because you haven't achieved what you want to achieve, but what have you done? What work? What skin in the game? Like you said, what are your chips all in? Like, are
mm,
you really putting in the work now, seriously, not procrastinating? Like, okay, I think I'm gonna do it today. I'm gonna wake up at 11 o'clock this morning and do it. Like, do the work. Do the work
mm.
over time, and you'll get there.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. This has been so good. So good. I literally have a page full of notes. Y'all know I'm always showing y'all my notebook, but I actually have a page full of notes that I have taken. I hope for every person that's listening, or if you're watching the visuals on YouTube, that you have taken notes as well. So, Nicole, before we wrap up for today, can you tell people? First, I want to start with your book. Can you tell people a little bit more about the book? Because you mentioned that at the beginning of the podcast. I don't feel like we got enough into that. Let's talk about the book. And then I also want to talk about the PM suite and how people can join your community.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. So yes, we talked about debt-free journey earlier in our conversation. And I mentioned on top of eliminating debt, my gift to myself after eliminating that debt was actually the book that I released, self-published and released, called Unlearn. ditch failed money habits and discover financial freedom. But you can literally type unlearn Nicole Jones in Amazon. You'll find it there. Or you can find it on my website, Mediocre to Masterful. And that platform is specifically around entrepreneurship, wealth, and wellness. So Amazon or mediocre-to-masterful.com, you'll find that book. And it's literally giving my practical steps and mindset shifts and the steps and the resources that I took to get to eliminating $80,000 worth of debt. The other part of that, the other business that I'm doing right now, and what we were talking about earlier in terms of the clients that I support, is the PM Suite, essentially project management operations consulting company. Again, the pmsuite.com. You can find me on Instagram for both of those accounts, Mediocre to Masterful on Instagram, or the PM Suite on Instagram, to follow me there. And so with the PM Suite, this year, actually, we're launching an online course around the PM Boss. So for those, I'm not only just supporting entrepreneurs, those who are project managers ready to like make the leap from corporate to consultant, that's where they can get support there as well. But if you're an entrepreneur, you need support in your business, you can also go to the PM Suite. So
yes, I love that. I love that. I get excited when I hear people launching like online courses and just helping other people. So make sure that you all follow Nicole, that you follow her on Instagram, that you visit the website, mediocre-to-masterful.com, and check out what she's working on. Make sure you get on her mailing list so that you're aware of when the online course is going to be released and you have that information. And then, of course, let's buy her out of this book. Like, I want her to be sold out and be like, man, that she can't keep a book on a shelf. Okay, so make sure you all go and purchase Unlearn by Nicole Jones. And like she said, you can get that on the website, or you all can get it on Amazon.com. Nicole, my sister, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. This has been an absolute pleasure. I hope this touched someone in their spirit and their soul. And they was like, you know what? I got a new fire under me now. Like, I need to get it together.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So we are going to let Nicole go. You enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, guys. So that brings us to the end of another episode. I am just so excited that Nicole had the opportunity to come on and share her debt-free story. Her paying off $80,000 between her and her husband, paying off $120,000 in debt, all of the sacrifices and discipline that was required in order to make that successful. She also put us on, like really helped us to understand what operations management is, what project management is, and why it's important. And I hope that you all apply everything that she shared so that you can get and keep the clients that you desire to have in this year. And if you have not reached 6 figures in revenue yet, it's okay. This is your year. Make 2023 the year that you achieve that financial goal within your business. Set up your plan, set up your systems, get the help that you need, make sure that your mindset is right, and really focus on operating your business in excellence so that you can see that. I'm going to let you guys go for today, but we will be back next week with another episode of the 6 Figure Setup Podcast. I love you guys to life. I'm your host, Tiffany Gillespie, and I'll see you next time.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Businesses have life cycles just like humans, and what they need at each stage will be different.
Yeah, it's a setup.